그래서 우리끼리 이제 북컨서트 이 책에는 오늘 신백훈 박사님과 김정은 교수님 발표를 할 겁니다. 발표하고 토론하는 그런 시간을 갖고 오늘 특별히 요 밑에 식당에 한 명이 들어있어요. 라인은 딱 라인 진틀만 밑에 프레즈 웰컴 밑에 이렇게.
You know, in my book, I deal with 10 myths about capitalism, and I can't speak here about all of them because I think you have the book and you can read the book, but I will speak about some of them that are very important. For example, what I hear very often, capitalism is responsible for hunger and poverty. Sometimes I have only 10 or 15 seconds to explain to people why. They ask me in interviews, for example, why do you have this t-shirt, I love capitalism? Today I don't have it, but they ask me, if I have only 10 seconds time, I tell them 200 years before capitalism, 90% of the worldwide population lived in extreme poverty, 90%. Today it's 9%. And the most important thing, half of this reduction happened over the last decade. So it's a great time. We had never such a reduction of poverty in history. And poverty, of course, meant something totally different. A lot of people have no idea how people lived before capitalism. They have maybe the fantasy like a modern excursion to the land side if they think about the time before capitalism. But in reality, you have here the facts that even in England and France, that were the richest countries at this time, 20% of inhabitants had not enough energy only to slow walking some hours per day, so they were not able to work. This is what poverty meant at this time. And if we speak about poverty, famines, then most people will think about Africa, of course. But it's not true. If you look at the numbers in the 20th century, 80% of victims of famines were in socialist Soviet Union, in socialist China. And you know this, I think you know it, from 1958 to 1962, there was the biggest socialist experiment in history, Mao's so-called Great Leap Forward. As a result, 45 million people in China died. And I have lectures about this topic all over the world. Latin America, United States, Europe, now here Asia. And wherever I speak, I ask people, have you heard at school about this biggest socialist experiment where 45 million people died? And wherever I speak, whether it's to 20 people like now, 200, 2,000, whether it's in Latin America, Europe, United States, almost no one had heard about it at school when I asked people. I see very few hands go up when I ask who have heard about this at school. So they heard a lot about the so-called evils of capitalism, but they heard nothing about what happened in socialist countries like, for example, this Great Leap Forward. Of course, I know the argument, yes, maybe, but poverty maybe has declined, but inequality is big. And it's true. I think even in Korea it was this way, that the time when Korea was poor in the 60s, people were more equal. The same in China. The time when everyone was poor, of course, people were more equal. There were some people, of course, from Communist Party who had a little bit more, but all in all, equality was higher. But I found no one in China or in Vietnam who thought, well, let's go back to planned economy times so that we are more equal. I would ask people in Korea, if equality for you is the absolute priority, let's go back to the 60s, because people in Korea were more equal in the 60s. What do you think about going back to the 60s? Everyone is in poverty, then we are all equal. No, I think inequality is not the topic. People ask yours, what do you think about inequality? I tell them, I don't care about inequality. I care about poverty. This is the problem. Poverty, not inequality. And I suppose about China. I have here a number, 1981, 88% of people in China lived in extreme poverty. 88%. Today it's less than 1%. You know how it happened? Deng Xiaoping introduced private property, started with pro-market reforms, poverty was reduced. The same in Vietnam in the 80s, even in the 90s. More than 80% lived very extreme poverty, and now it's less than 5%. It was the same in Korea. It's everywhere where capitalism is introduced, poverty is reduced. At the same time, the number of rich people increased. I have here the numbers for China. Today you have as many billionaires in China as you have in the United States. Even in Beijing, you have more billionaires than in New York City. So inequality is higher, number of billionaires is higher, inequality is higher, but I don't care about it if so many people escape poverty. And I love this graph also for another reason. The core belief of all anti-capitalists is zero-sum belief. What do I mean with zero-sum belief? Zero-sum belief means they think that people can only become rich because they take it away from the poor. But if this would be true, how to explain this graphic? If rich people only become rich when they take it away from the poor, it's not logical. And of course it's nonsense. But this is what people believe. Someone can get only rich when he takes something away from other people. Zero-sum belief. Especially, there are two groups of people who believe it. People in prisons. Everyone in prison believes I can get only rich when I rob a bank or when I take something away. And people in social science department of universities. These are the main believers in zero-sum belief. Social science department of university and prisoners. They all believe in zero-sum thinking, and of course all socialists. And that is not true. You see it also with this graph. In the end of the 80s, more than 30% of the population worldwide lived in extreme poverty. Today, 9%. At the same time, the number of billionaires increased. In 2000, there were 500 billionaires all over the world. Today, it's 2,700, 5 times more. The reason, and this is important, for reducing poverty and increasing the number of billionaires is the same. Economic growth. Next month we have 300th birthday of Adam Smith. And in his book, Wealth of Nations, I read it one more time now because I had to write some articles about this topic. If you ask me what was his main contribution that he understood that we can only reduce poverty with economic growth. And 300 years later, you see, he was right. Adam Smith was right. This is the most important contribution, that you can't only fight poverty with economic growth. Today, very important topic for a lot of people, especially in Germany, where I come from. Young people are concerned about climate change, environmental destruction. First of all, most of the environmental conditions are much better than they were 30 or 40 years ago. You can read it in the book by Steven Pinker, Enlightenment Now. He has a chapter about this. If you look at the quality of the air, quality of water, it's better. Of course, there's this problem of climate change. I know some people don't believe in it, but let's assume it's true there is this problem of climate change. Look here at do you think you can fight it with a planned economy? No. I know, who here in this room knows this index of economic freedom? Can you raise your hand? Who knows this index of economic freedom? Okay, then I explain it to you. Index of economic freedom is created by Heritage Foundation since 1995. I recommend this to you. You can get it for free on the internet. Google it. Index of economic freedom, 500 pages. It's ranking all countries, how economically free are these countries. At the top you find Singapore, Switzerland. At the bottom you find Venezuela, Cuba, and North Korea is the last one. By the way, South Korea is number 15 in this ranking. 15. And then there's another index, Environmental Performance Index from Yale University. And I compared both of these indices here in this graphic. And you see, the most capitalist countries, so the most economically free countries, have the best environmental performance index scores. And the mostly unfree and repressed countries have the worst environmental performance index score. So this is a strong argument against capitalism leads to environmental destruction. And here's the comparison East-West Germany. You see, these are the CO2 emissions adjusted to GDP per capita. They were 3 times higher in East Germany than in West Germany. So if someone tells you private profit-seeking companies are the reason for environmental destruction, I asked them, and were those private profit-seeking companies in East Germany? There were no, because it was all state-owned. But environmental destructions were the worst in socialist countries. Soviet Union. Never in history there was so much destruction of the environment as in Soviet Union. And you know, even the worst disaster with a nuclear power plant was in Ukraine at this time, socialist times. It's not only with CO2 emissions. I have here some other facts. Airborne pollutants, sulfur dioxide, for example, 10 times higher in East Germany than West Germany. And I love to compare East-West Germany as to compare North and South Korea, because same country, same language, same people, same history, different economic systems. So you can compare it. By the way, I produced a film, you can Google it on the internet, Life Behind the Berlin Wall. It's comparing East and West Germany. I would love to make a similar film about North and South Korea. I got an award for this film with Free to Choose Network. At last, Anthem Freedom Fest in Las Vegas for Best Short Movie. It's only 70 minutes. You can Google this on the internet. You can find a lot of facts like this. It's only 70 minutes. Life Behind the Berlin Wall. Maybe if you have time later, you can watch it here together at 70 minutes. And you know, another argument goes like this. Resources of our planet are limited. And for this, it's logical that limited growth is not possible. It sounds logical. Everyone needs to say, yes, it's not possible. But growth doesn't mean always needing more resources. On the contrary, I have here a typical capitalist innovation, the iPhone. And it's not complete there. Someone summed up that in an iPhone there were 34 devices before. A telephone and alarm clock and a camera and a calculator and whatever, you know. So we needed much more resources for this before. Now we need less resources. The iPhone, capitalist, innovation. The same when I was young. I think some of you here are older. We had all this big LP to hear music. You remember? This big LP. I had a proud collection in my home. Then later we bought the small CDs. Less resources. Today, my girlfriend, who is much younger than me, she laughs at me. Why do you buy CDs? I know no one else. We take it from the internet. We load it down. You don't need any resources for this. Or books. I don't know how many books I have. I haven't counted them. 7,000, I don't know. Something like this maybe. My father is 94 years old. He don't buy any books anymore. He uses Kindle. It's better for him. Need not so much resources. So growth doesn't mean always needing more resources. And then there's a very popular argument, capitalism is dominated by the rich. They set the political agenda. I don't want to speak about my country, Germany, because this would be absolutely ridiculous if someone says rich people rule in Germany. I think a lot of things would be much better in Germany, but we have ideologists who rule there in Germany. And I don't think that rich people rule here in Korea. But United States, everyone thinks this, you can see it in all movies, and it's true. To win presidential election, you have to raise a lot of money. But it's not so easy. The more money, then it's a guarantee. If more money, then you will be president. No, Donald Trump would have never been president. A lot of rich people didn't like him. As of September 2016, you see not a single Fortune 100 CEO had donated to Trump's campaign. Later they donated because they say maybe he will win, give him some money as an insurance if he wins this. But Hillary Clinton got twice as much as Donald Trump, twice as much. And Today, we wouldn't have President Joe Biden in the White House, because if you see here in the campaign for the Democratic candidacy, Michael Bloomberg was the 8th richest man at this time in the world, not in the United States, in the world, with a net worth of $62 billion. And he spent $1 billion. There was no one ever in history who spent so much in such a short time from his private assets. Result, zero. Joe Biden, who's really poor compared with him, won the race, not Michael Bloomberg. And here in my book, I quote a lot of other books from people who think different than me, who are not on the same page. For example, Larry M. Bartels is a more left-leaning political scientist in the United States. And he examined 16 presidential election campaigns from 1952 to 2012. And I added the other one between Clinton and Trump. And the result is there were just 2 out of 17 elections over the past 64 years in which unequal campaign spending made the difference. So the influence of rich people, even in the United States, is much exaggerated. And then they have another argument. They say, yes, but politicians do what rich people want. And there was a paper, scientific paper, quoted in every book about this topic. I don't know why. Maybe there were not so many. And this is a study from 2012. They asked rich people about their priorities in politics. Priority number 1 was reduce budget deficits. Last thing was climate change. And now, the good thing is, now it's 10 years later, and we can see what happened. Maybe rich people wanted, their priority was, you see it in the poll, reduction of budget deficit. But what happened? It's twice as high as it was 10 years ago. So neither Barack Obama, nor Donald Trump, nor Joe Biden did what rich people wanted. They did exactly the opposite. And the last priority was climate change, what is first priority today by Joe Biden. So it's good that we have now 10 years later, because 10 years before they told us, oh, so you see, politicians will do what is the priority of the rich people. And then it's about monopolies. I hear it very often, capitalism leads to monopolies. But the power of monopolies is much overestimated when they are on the height of their power. Here's a headline from the UK daily newspaper Guardian, 2007. Will MySpace ever lose its monopoly? If I have the presentation with young people, they ask me, MySpace, haven't heard about it. What's that? I tell them, it's something like Facebook. Also, I understand. So, but this is will MySpace ever lose its monopoly? The same year, Forbes magazine, first page, Nokia, 1 billion customers. Can anyone catch the cell phone king who used Nokia mobile phone today? It's exaggerated. Well, it's Xerox. Now in the United States, if you make a photocopy, you call it Xeroxing. Why? Because Xerox had a market share of 95%. This is a real monopoly, 95%. Today it's less than 2%, less than 2%. Other companies from Korea, from Japan, had innovation and made it much better. So Xerox lost its monopoly. Capitalism can lead to monopolies, but capitalism destroys monopolies because of innovation and competition. Kodak in the 70s, 90% of US film market, 85% US camera market, got bankrupt. They didn't understand the shift to digital cameras, bankrupt. And I have a lot of other examples for this. The crazy thing is, we discuss with anti-capitalists. 8 o'clock, I don't like capitalism, it leads to monopolies. 1 hour later, still the discussion, they tell you, oh, we should nationalize some banks and big companies. Hey, I don't understand it. 1 hour ago you told me monopolies are bad. And now you vote for the state monopoly. What is the worst monopoly ever? Because you can't get rid of it. It's a contradiction. Are you pro-monopoly or anti-monopoly? So, I have a lot of other facts in the book. These were only some examples. The first review of the book in Germany, the journalist wrote, Zittelmann me, he's a fanatic of facts. Now, this is true. I'm proud about this. fanatic of facts. This is a book without theory. It's a book about facts. And I had a poll here. Some results will surprise you, I know, but I will inform you about some of the results of the poll. This is the biggest poll ever done in history about the image of capitalism. Now in 35 countries. I don't know how many countries are in the book. I don't know exactly. It's different in every edition. The book is published in 30 countries. In German edition, it's only 14 countries. In the United States, 21. It depends when the book is published, because it was an ongoing process. Now it's, maybe you can look how many countries. In Germany now, now it's, I can inform you about 34 countries. And, you know, you have to understand one thing. Sometimes there were other surveys with only one question, like, do you like capitalism or not? I think this is a little bit stupid, because even the word capitalism has a lot of negative connotation for a lot of people. It sounds like a dirty word for us. And we want to find out how much has it to do with the word and how much what the word stands for. So first we asked people 6 questions where we did not use the word capitalism, but questions to find out whether they are pro or anti-free market economy. You see here, for example, if someone supported the statement, I'm for an economic system in which the state sets the rules, but ideally does not interfere, otherwise is pro-free market. Someone who supports the statement, we need a lot more state intervention in the economy since the market fails time and again, is anti-free market. And then we calculated the average percentage of positive pro-market, negative pro-state statements, and divided both and came out to a pro-anti-capitalism coefficient. And we did it in all the countries. By the way, the survey was conducted by one of the most prestigious polling institutes in the world. It's Ipsos Mori. I think together with Gallup, these are the most important in the world. It was very expensive. I paid for every country 40,000 euros for this survey. But it was worth it. Here are the results. Attitudes toward economic freedom if we didn't use the word capitalism. You see at the top, Poland, number 1, followed by United States, Czech Republic, then South Korea, Japan, Argentina, Sweden. We can discuss later. If you have questions about any country, I have, not about every country, but about a lot of countries, I can tell you something, because I was in a lot of these countries and discussed with people. But then, in addition to these questions where we didn't use the word capitalism, we added other questions where we used it. This is an association test. We asked people, if you hear the word capitalism, about what do you think? Do you think about economic freedom? I think Korea was one of the very few countries where this was at the top. And, no, this was not the here's the association test. What do you think when you hear the word capitalism? Do you think about prosperity or greed, corruption or innovation? Again, we calculated the average percentage of positive answers like prosperity, freedom, negative like corruption, environmental destruction, and came out with a pro-anti-capitalism coefficient. And then we added 18 other questions. You see, it's very thoroughly. It's not like one question, do you like capitalism or not? 18 questions, 18 statements. Capitalism means economic freedom, positive, or encourages people to do their best. These are the results for Korea. Or negative, leads to growing inequality, promotes selfishness and greed, and so on. Again, we calculated average percentage, positive, negative statements, divided both, and came out to pro-anti-capitalism coefficient. And then we put all together 34 statements. This is what people think of capitalism internationally. The higher the number is, the more pro-capitalist is the country. You see, Poland, number 1. It's not a surprise. Poland was one of the poorest countries in Europe in socialist times. One of the poorest countries. Poorer than Ukraine. GDP per capita half of Czech Republic. Very poor. Since 25 years, they had similar growth as Korea in the best time. It's like, I call it, the South Korea of Europe. It's Poland. It's great what they have done there. People in Poland, I know there's Leszek Balcerowicz is a friend of mine today. He was the finance minister, economic reformer in Poland, and he wrote also the preface for my book. Number two, United States, but there's a big difference in the United States. Older Americans are extremely pro-capitalism, pro-entrepreneur, pro-market. Young Americans, they are more who are skeptical or even negative. Big difference in the United States. And then number three, Korea. I think, you don't believe it because you think everyone here is anti-capitalist, but it's not true. Maybe if you compare it with your own attitude, everyone is anti-capitalist. But I don't compare it with your attitude, I compare it with other countries, with the same questions. And then you see, South Korea is one of the most pro-capitalist countries for the attitude. Japan, the same. Nigeria, maybe it's a surprise, I will go there soon, but it's easy. For people in Nigeria who are really poor, capitalism means hope for them. If they hear capitalism, they think about Europe and they think about the United States, and they know that it's much better. So I say people in Nigeria are much smarter than people in Germany or France, for example. In Nigeria, almost no one believes that capitalism is responsible for hunger and poverty. They don't believe it. They know it's wrong. They know it's nonsense. They know it. But in France and Germany, they don't know it. They believe capitalism is responsible for hunger and poverty. People in Nigeria are smarter. Czech Republic, the same story as Poland. Then Vietnam, maybe a surprise because they call themselves socialist with a communist party. And of course it's a dictatorship with no freedom of press, no freedom of speech. But in economic way, they started in 1986 with the so-called Doi Moi reforms in Vietnam, and we have a lot of entrepreneurial spirit there in Vietnam. I was there, and I was invited to 4 universities in Vietnam. For example, Foreign Trade University, what is a very prestigious university in Vietnam. They invited me to speak at a workshop, how can we improve image of rich people? But in Vietnam, it is one of the countries with the best image of rich people, but they had this workshop how to improve it. Not possible in the United States or Europe, such a workshop. And it's harder to find a Marxist at the University of Vietnam than in the United States. You find much more Marxists there. So capitalism has positive connotation. The Argentina, maybe you wonder about Argentina. I was there. It's the strongest libertarian movement I have seen all over the world today is in Argentina. By far the strongest. A lot of libertarian young people, they hope for capitalism. And they have a candidate now, he will run for president. Maybe you heard about him, Javier Milei. He's professor for Austrian economics. But he's like, he doesn't look like professor for Austrian economics. It's like, like this populist people have to be in Latin America. It's this way, But young people love him, poor people love him, and I met not him, but the vice president from party, what is one of the most beautiful women in Argentina. She's photo model and actor, and she is vice president for the party, made party attractive. So a very strong libertarian movement there in Argentina. Sweden, some people think Sweden is a socialist country. Forget it. It was in the 70s. A lot of things happened there. We had first the questions where we did not use the word capitalism. And then we had the other questions where we used it. And you can compare both and you see the effect of using the word capitalism. I think this is no surprise. Support of capitalism increases in a lot of countries, most countries, when you did not use the word. But I think this is not a surprise everyone would have expected this, because capitalism has a negative connotation for a lot of people. But this is not the important message. Some people believe, don't use the word capitalism, then everyone will be on our side, on our page. Wrong. I would be happy if it would be so easy. Only change the word and everyone will agree with us. It's not true. Keep in mind this traffic. We didn't use the word capitalism. There were only 7 pro-capitalist countries in the world. Use the word, there are 6. It's not a big difference. It's not a big difference. Even when we don't use it, the majority of all people in all countries is against capitalism. This is the truth. And then, I don't know how it was in Korea, in the time of the pandemic, we had a lot of in the media about conspiracy theories. Usually, conspiracy theory in most books is linked with right-wing thinking. And of course, there are crazy right-wing people, for example, in the United States who believe in conspiracy theory. Maybe you heard about this QAnon people, like to call it really crazy people. But I had a hypothesis as a scholar, as a scientist. My hypothesis was anti-capitalism is a form of conspiracy theory. And how to prove it? That's a little bit cold. In addition to all these questions about capitalism, we confronted our respondents with two statements that are typical for conspiracy theorists. You see these two statements. In reality, politicians don't decide anything. They are puppets controlled by powerful forces in the background. And the second statement, a lot of things in politics can only be properly understood if you know that there's a larger plan behind that, something that most people do not know. This is typical for conspiracy theories. If someone agreed with both of the statements, we call them conspiracy theories. And then we looked whether anti-capitalists or pro-capitalists supported this statement more. And here on this graph, don't look about the difference between countries. It's not important. Important is the difference between the left dark bar and the right bright bar. And you see that in almost every country, anti-capitalists tend more to conspiracy theory than pro-capitalists. The dark bar, these are the anti-capitalists, is longer than the bright bar, these are the pro-capitalists. This is true for every country, only in Albania it was the same. I don't know what's in Albania. And in the United States, the difference is not so big. It's a smaller difference than in other countries. These are the Trump supporters. At the same time, they believe maybe QAnon is correct and conspiracy, and it's all at the same time that capitalism is a good thing. But in most other countries, you see, where we have it here for, I have to look for South Korea. Where do we have it? That's here. 2.8 against 1.6, also the same. And anti-capitalists are more pro. So I remember when I got this result from the survey for the first time. I had a lecture in Sweden, and as a scholar, as a scientist, I was really enthusiastic because it happens not very often that the hypothesis is proved so crystal clear. Even if maybe 20 out of 34 countries would be this way, my hypothesis would be proved correct. But these were 33 out of 34 countries where it was correct. So who is a scientist, this happens not very often, almost nothing. So I think it's crystal clear proof anti-capitalists are conspiracy theories. So these were some of the results of my books. This is the book here on the left side. I think you had here a meeting about the other book. I think in English it's like Bad Socialism or Good Capitalism or something like this. The German title is Capitalism is not the problem but the solution. In English it's The Power of Capitalism, different titles. Also published. The left book will be published now in 30 countries, this book. I think it's now also 10 countries published. And then there's this other book, Dare to be Different and Grow Rich, Secret of Self-Made People. The title may be a little bit misleading. It's not only about how to grow rich. Very successful book for me, published in so many countries. It's about how to set yourself bigger goals, whether it's with money or other things. And then the last book here on the right hand, this is my second doctoral dissertation. I have 2 PhDs. The first PhD in history, it was about Adolf Hitler's economic and social ideas. This was my first doctoral dissertation. And in history, and the second one was in sociology, and this is about psychology of rich people. It's about the question whether there's a correlation between their personality traits on the one hand and their financial success on the other hand. And I had interviews with 45 very rich people for this book. So these are some results, and now I'm very happy if you have questions and if we can have a discussion. But first of all, thank you again for inviting me here.
프로듀스는 영어로 하셔야 되고 한국말로 하면 제가 한국어로 하니까 영어 하실 때 한국말로 중국어로 해야 되거든요. 아무나
이게 마이크가 되는 모양이네요.
마이크 네 마이크
밑에.
이건 마이크 김구현 박사님은 영어를 읽는데 영어를 듣잖아요.
Anyhow, thank you so much. Your wonderful lecture on capitalism, and this is a hot issue in the world. As we all know it, since 1960, so-called intellectuals in France and in the United States of America, just like Jean-Paul Sartre and Noam Chomsky, something like that, have shown patterns such as pointing out the capitalist problems or admiring socialism as an ideal. And what do you think is the reason or purpose of them constantly attacking capitalism? That is one question.
Let's go one question after the other. Then.
Okay, thank you.
You know, in my other book, I have one chapter, I think it's the best chapter in the other book, Why Intellectuals Don't Like Capitalism. I was very proud when there was the first review from Adam Smith Institute, Madsen Piri, who's a very important person in libertarian scene in the world, in Europe, and he wrote that I contributed even more than Hayek to this topic, where I was very proud to read this. So this is what I think you discussed about this book. The source is intellectuals. This is something where Hayek and Lenin agreed. Both said workers' movement is not the source of socialism. This is intelligentsia, intellectuals. And it's too long to explain here, but I have in this book chapter why is that. But the question is, why are they so successful with this? And my answer is because there are some answers. First, they are public relation and marketing genius, real genius. And because to position a system where 100 million people died, that failed 25 times in the last century, that improved in not a single case the living conditions of ordinary people. To position this system as human, at the same time, to position a system that is responsible for reducing the number of people living in poverty from 90 to 9% as inhuman. To do this, you have to be a marketing genius, a PR genius. And I think we should learn something from them. That's the problem. We have not enough people to defend capitalism. You find a lot, I don't know how is it here, when we have a discussion in Germany, TV, entrepreneur and anti-capitalist and entrepreneur. Yes, in a way you're right, there's a lot of wrong in capitalism. I agree with a lot of things, but it's not the worst thing. There are others. So you can't defend capitalism in this way. I do it different ways. Either capitalism is absolutely the best system ever in human history because it never happened that so many people came out of poverty. I say it with enthusiasm, not like, yes, I know it's a lot of things wrong with capitalism, this stuff. So there are not enough people to defend capitalism. And we make a lot of mistakes. I know a lot of these libertarian think tanks in the world, and they do a great job in a way, but in another way, they are not successful. I see always there very few people sitting there, listen to them, the same people who are on the same page, and there's someone telling them, here I have a Mises quote, I have another Hayek quote, another Friedman quote, and something about pricing theory. You can't convince people and win young people with this kind of theoretical stuff. And I think there are three possibilities to speak about such topics. First, theory, most difficult. Most people are not interested in theory and are not able to understand the theory. Next, what I do, facts, history, tell some stories. A little bit better. I think much better, much easier to understand for people, but not the best. The best is emotion. And I was some weeks ago in Greece, and my hotel was next to the parliament. And that Sunday I was there at the balcony of the hotel and saw some thousands of protesters with hammer and circle and red flags in front of the parliament. And this was because there was an accident. 50 people died with a train accident some days before. And of course, capitalism was to blame, like for all bad things that happen in the world. And I couldn't understand their speeches, I couldn't understand their songs, but I saw something. Half of the time they sang songs and played songs. Very heart-touching, beautiful music. And then I said to my girlfriend, look at these people. We have the facts, but they have the songs. And they have the emotion. And this is a stronger emotion. So why we spoke about, in the United States you have some filmmakers as Michael Moore. They know how to deal with emotions. We need a lot more. I don't know whether there's a film like this. Maybe there's in Korea about someone, I mean a movie, not a documentary, a movie about how bad life was like in North Korea, for example, heartbreaking to see starvation, people in hunger. Not statistics, from a single person, what happened to him and how he fled from North Korea to South Korea and how he came first time to see this big, great shopping centers that you have here, like an alien come from another planet because you have never seen and know that someone exists like this. And we need some films and things, more emotion to convince. So, to sum up, answer very easy. All the arguments are on our side. If we can convince people, very easy. We are bad marketing. We are bad in population. Socialists are better. So do it what you call best practice in business. Learn from the best. And the best, the champions there are socialists. Learn from them. They are better. We should adapt some of their methods. Not their concept, but how they do it. But you had a lot of questions,
Okay, thank you so much for your kind answer. And as we all know, the leftists are marketing genius, as you said, and they are gaining some traction with the general public. So, what are your strategies to revive or maintain capitalism? And what is your proposal and what is your say?
This partly I asked the question, but I can add, the real problem are the entrepreneurs. They should support capitalism much more, but they don't do it. Sometimes they even support left-wing anti-capitalists with their money, instead of supporting you, what would be much better, of course. This is the biggest problem. To be honest, I don't know how to change it. If I would know it, I would have done it myself, because I did now this 34 surveys, and 30 others for a survey about image of rich people. I spent $750,000 from my own pocket. Why? Because I found no one who gave me the money. I would have some other ideas what to do with the money. Also my young girlfriend would have some other ideas. What could I do with the money instead of spending it for the research? But I didn't find someone to support it. And this is a big problem. I could do it because I was an entrepreneur and I made money as an entrepreneur and investor, so I have the money, but I can't do something like this a second time. Because for this book, if you sum up how much money I spent, and then for travel, no one pays me here, travel expense, hotel, and I go to 30 countries, and I don't sleep in a youth hostel, and I don't fly, I fly business class, and this is expensive. And if I sum up, I think this book cost me $1 million. Do you think I can get it back from sales? I don't believe so. So this is and I can't do it one more time. I hope to find one time someone who understands this, that it's important to fight for capitalism. But I think our problem are not the left people, not the anti-capitalists. They are not our problem. Our problem are the entrepreneurs and the people who should support capitalism. They are the problem. Only they are the problem, because they are silent. They don't take part in discussion. They even don't support a lot of this. Some support, of course, but not so many. They are the problem, not the left, not some crazy left-leaning people. They are our real problem. If I would have a solution, I wouldn't have done it by myself. But I do what I can do. I go to all these countries. hope you will support me here, and thank you for supporting me. The book is only a vehicle for me, for communication. It's a vehicle. What I do, last 2 months I had 40 interviews in the United States, TV, radio. Even when I'm here in South Korea. Tomorrow morning, first thing, interview with the United States. 7 p.m. means 8 a.m. here. In the evening, next interview, 7 p.m. here. It's 12 in Germany. So I do a lot. I produce the film. Hopefully you see it, Live Behind the Berlin Wall. Now I produce the next film about Poland. And I write my articles in a lot of languages. Now for Adam Smith's 300th birthday, hopefully they will publish this in Wall Street Journal, and hopefully you find someone to publish my article here also in Korea. So I think I do a lot of things there. I have the time to do it. I like to do it. But of course, thank you very much. I need people in every country to support me, because I think what we need sometimes are people who can explain pro-capitalism in an easy way, not in a theoretical way. And I think I can do it. I give you an example. I was in Argentina. 100 years ago, one of the wealthiest countries in the world, is the United States. And then they started with their crazy terrorism and all the state influence. And since 100 years decline, since 1945, they have every single year double inflation rate, only in the 90s now. Every single year, can you imagine? No one here, is here not one in this room born before 1945? No one. So everyone from you would expect only double-digit inflation as normal. And I was there in some cities and spoke to young people like maybe 20 years old, 21 years old. And I try to explain to them in an easy way what is capitalism. I give you an example. There was a young man sitting in the first row. And the Argentinians, they expect everything by the state. I will get it for free from the government, from the state. This is my right to get this and that free. There was a young man sitting in the first row. He was not really handsome, so I thought maybe he has no girlfriend. I asked him, hey, do you have a girlfriend? No, I don't have. Then I asked him, would you love to have a really beautiful, pretty girlfriend? He smiled. Oh yes, I would like. And then I asked him, what do you expect? Who will bring you this pretty girlfriend? The government? The state? And he laughed, no, I don't believe it. And then I asked him, what do you believe? Who's responsible for getting this pretty girlfriend? He said, I think that's me. Yes, you got it. This is not only with this girlfriend, it's with money, it's with everything. It's on you. This is classic liberal philosophy. And so, you have to explain things in an easy way. And if I speak about why the tricks of socialists, I give you maybe 2 other examples, how I explain, not for you, you are here smart people, I don't have to make such easy things, but for other people, how I do. For example, I go then to someone and let's say I ask you, are you married? Yes, you are? Are you married or not?
No.
You're married. So are you happy with your marriage? You? Are you happy?
Yeah.
Hopefully. Okay. So hopefully, and then I ask you when you come home this evening and your wife we have to talk. It's about divorce. Would you be surprised? Hopefully. Hopefully, maybe not. Hopefully, you are surprised. And then I tell you what happened. Your wife started to read these romantic love novels where people are so much in love, they kiss every morning with breakfast, it's all harmony, it's all perfect. And then she compared your marriage with this book. And she said, here, it's not as it should be, because I read it in the book that it is different, They kiss every morning. You don't kiss me every morning at breakfast. But in the book, it is this way. And a lot of other things. We should divorce. You would say, hey, it's crazy to compare our real marriage with a book. Please compare it with our friends, then it's good. This is what socialists do. They compare a book, a utopia, with reality. This is their trick. They don't like, you spoke about my book. I compare East-West Germany, North-South Korea, Cuba or Venezuela, Chile. They compare a book, a utopia, with reality. So I explain to people in the easy way, or maybe the last example, you know, the trick from socialists is always if an experiment fails, a socialist experiment, do you know what they say after it failed? They say always the same. You know what they say? After it failed, they say, sorry, it wasn't real socialism. Next time it will happen. It was even Soviet Union, Stalin. Intellectuals were enthusiastic about Stalin. After it failed, oh no, this wasn't socialism. They were enthusiastic about Mao Zedong. After it failed, no, it wasn't real socialism. Last time, Venezuela, 1998, when Hugo Chavez was elected. Intellectuals all over the world were so enthusiastic. Socialists were 21st century, because North Korea was not the best motivating example for socialism. So Venezuela sounded much better, like Cuba a little bit. And then, you know, it failed. It failed. 1 million% inflation rate, 10% of people fled from Venezuela. People are hunger, starvation. Democracy abolished, no more freedom of press. What always happens with socialism? And what do the same socialists tell you today? Oh, no, it wasn't real socialism. This is what always happens. And now, how do I explain it to people not like you, but if I speak to ordinary people? I give them an example. This thing goes like this. Imagine there's a housewife who bakes a cake and then invite guests Saturday. Guests get sick. They even have to warm it. She understands, okay, something was wrong with the recipe. I have to change some ingredients. To change something, invite guests next Saturday, but what happens? Guests vomit again, get sick. Oh, something is wrong. I have to change really things. New ingredients, the same recipe, but some modification. She invites again guests, and you can imagine what happens. Guests get sick and vomit. And then she does it 25 times. Of course, not the same guests will come. Always other guests, and they will, every time they get sick and they vomit. And then, hey, this is a crazy story. There's no housewife in the world who is so crazy. I agree, but this is what socialists did. They tried it in so many different ways. The same recipe, only with some modifications. They tried it in Cuba in another way than in East Germany, maybe. In China in another way than in Soviet Union. In North Korea, in another way than in Vietnam, in Yugoslavia, in another way than in Albania. But it failed time and again without any exception. So I think they are even crazier than this housewife, because this housewife, maybe in reality, she would do it 2 times, I don't know. If she would, maybe not 3 times, but not 25 times. This is what socialists did. So, I mean, I think this is very important. And there are more other things. To attract young people, I think it's important not to look like someone who defends all as it is. Because young people don't want someone who's happy with everything, defending existing things. Young people are always rebellious. They want to change the world. And this is one reason why I use the word capitalism. Because they can use it as a provocation against older people. There's some young friends in Berlin. They say, I'm for capitalism. This is provoking, of course, against their teachers, against their parents, against everything. And it's good. They need it. We need something, and this is the way, you know, when I had my company, I was dressed like him always. You know, sweet tie. And when someone from my employees came out of dress, like, go home again, where's your tie? I don't accept people here working this way. Now I'm here with my jeans and polo sometimes. Why? It's more comfortable maybe, yes, but another reason, for young people, I don't want to look like someone from establishment defending the system. I want to look like someone a little bit cool, like going against the system. And I gave him some pictures with my, you know, showing my muscle, my bicep, and with his t-shirt, I love capitalism. So this means marketing, PR, for me to attract young people. This is my way. And I try to do it now all over the world. This is my, you know, my ambition. And so it's good to have you here because, of course, I can't do it alone. I have no organization. I have no employees. Only 2-3 people working by side for me for not much money. So, and you can imagine, I can tell you last yesterday he was with me. 9 o'clock presentation in university. Then go to the next 2 hours to drive, have a little bit sleep and do my emails. Next presentation. Then third presentation. And then we came home and then till 1:30 this morning giving interview with writing answers for interview in Germany and answering all these emails from Albania, from United States and Italy and wherever, answer their questions. Today, go up 7 o'clock to answer next emails, to have next interviews, and now here. So I like it. It's not, I do it by myself, but of course I can do a lot, but I need some support, and I have this goal. This book should be a bestseller in at least 3 countries. It's not easy to have a bestseller with a non-fiction book, but the other book about bad socialism was in this time for some weeks in South Korea, #1 non-fiction book. This was great. And I want to do the same with this book, but it don't happen so. You have to do something. Media, article, interviews. I had this pen and mic interview and something like this. And I want to regularly write therefore, because I write every year, I write down my goals. And when I wrote this book on New Year's Eve, I wrote down my goal. I want this book published in 20 countries and will sign a contract this year. It was my goal. And was successful. Now it's even 30 countries. So, okay, I spoke too long, I understood it, but thank you for supporting me. Is there another question now, or do you have now your internal?
Yeah, maybe wait about 10 minutes more for Q&A.
Okay, yes, I think you were first, so.
Thank you.
Thank you for your excellent and very, very energetic presentation this afternoon. And I'm research from Korea Freedom Conference and retired Major General Kim, Republic of Korea Army. And now we are running short on time, so I'd like to give up to ask a quick question. Have capitalists like Dr. G. Tellman have discussed or argued with the entire capitalist about their lies and propaganda? And or have we ever persuaded self-contradictory anti-capitalist? Why do you think they are continuing to make such arguments, even though they have never been successful in history? Isn't it connected to ideological issues related to politics in every country? And then what's the difference between modified capitalism and the neoliberalism? And capitalism that Dr. G. Tellman emphasizes. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Yes, of course, I had some discussion with anti-capitalists, for example, in Germany. I invited a lot more people, for example, in Greece. I wanted to discuss with Varoufakis, but he didn't want it. If you know here in Korea, a famous anti-capitalist, make a big event, invite me, I come again. I'd love to discuss with him. I would really like to discuss with him. But to convince these people, no. Because it's a religion. It's not based on rational thinking. I have here my book. It's a political religion. Have you ever tried to convince someone from Scientology cult why maybe Scientology is wrong with some facts and arguments? I never tried it, but I wouldn't believe that I'm so successful because it's based in emotion, it's based in a belief system. Of course, people can change. I saw some people wrote me emails and I read your books before I was anti-capitalist. I read your book and now I think different. Of course this happens, but the main purpose to write this book was not to convince anti-capitalists, but to provide people like you with all the arguments if you have discussions with them, because they won't read the book, they will not buy the book. I'm 100% sure. They buy the next book, Why Capitalism is Evil, and they will not buy it, they will not read it. But if you read it and if you give it to other people and you discuss it, and even you should buy not one book, buy 100. Give it to all your friends. I did it with some of the books to spread the message around. So there was another question. Yeah. You maybe first. You okay?
Very short question and a little bit long comment. I'm very pleased to take your lecture and grateful for your defending capitalism all over the world. Your special force to defend capitalism in Korea will make military like you. So I want to make a team to defend capitalism in Korea and Northeast Asia, allied EU, America, Japan, hopefully. The question is, now in Korea, ESG, very popular trend. NGO, academy, government, enterprise, all this is very important in future. But for me, environment, what? Like climate change, social responsibility, that's not a capitalism. In capitalism, the purpose is making money without fraud. So it's a freedom, liberty, make money. There is no social responsibility. And what? Governance? Who is governed? Who govern? Entrepreneur. For capitalism, entrepreneur govern his enterprise. In Russia, I don't think there is capitalism.
No.
Alago, Russian mafia, they make successful fortune. But that's not capitalism, that's not entrepreneurial. So, my question is, ESG is a weapon for socialists to attack capitalism?
Yes, of course. I read a book a few weeks ago from the United States. The title was The Dictatorship of Woke Capital. And it was, for example, about this ESG. ESG is the only example how great they are with marketing and PR, because in reality it's an old thing. It's planned economy, that not consumers should decide and not entrepreneurs that should decide, but some committees with their criteria what to produce. And this is a very old idea. It's a simple planned economy, but they have a new, this is what I saw, they are creative marketing. For me it's only a new marketing thing for planned economy. ESG, nothing else. And what you said about Russia, also very important, and I can support it. If someone calls Russia a capitalist country, this is the craziest thing I ever heard. Russia is a kleptocracy, what means there are a few people who steal everything from people, from entrepreneurs. In 2000, they started, Putin, maybe in the first 1 or 2 years, to go, maybe we could hope, in a good direction, capitalism. But then Putin started with expropriating entrepreneurs, with Khodorkovsky, for example. This was the first, he took the richest one in prison. So as a warning for all other entrepreneurs, if you don't do what I want, I do the same as with him. This is typical like mafia methods. They take the strongest one, kill him as a warning for everyone else. And then from this moment on, they did it with a lot of others to expropriate and practically take it over, kleptocracy. And so why is this important? Because I wrote an article about it. Abolishing freedom starts always with abolishing private property. Russia is a perfect example. They did it 2 times. The first time was 1917. They started abolishing private property, the old way, communist way with Lenin. Now, today, there's other ways to expropriate. Some tax fraud or sue him or whatever, so as they did it, Putin. But it was the second time, 2003, with Putin and Khodorkovsky, so the that they lose all their freedom, started with losing, abolishing private property. And so you see how important private property is in the world, because it's not only that some rich people are expropriated, but in the end everyone will lose his own freedom in the country. Yes, I think the last question here, can you give him the microphone?
감사합니다. 네, 알겠습니다. 네.
This is a question not about capitalism in general, but about German capitalism.
Yes.
May I ask a question to you?
What?
This is not your question about German capitalism.
Yes, ask.
Okay, yes. I think the most important attribute of the capitalism is a private property system. You mentioned that the last moment of your lecture about that. And I heard that the German property system is maintained by the inheritance tax system, which it gives a family fortune to the eldest son of the family. I would like to know your evaluation about the German, that kind of inheritance system to make the Germany have a strong and solid private property system.
Yes, interesting question. It's first true. We have a lot of, we call it family companies. These are not public companies, no limited companies or something like this. Private owned companies, family companies, we call it in German Familienunternehmen. They are very strong, and of course, if you give it to the next generation, it's not tax-free. There are problems, but there are possibilities to avoid taxes. It's not easy, and you have to hire the best consultants, and it becomes more and more difficult in Germany. And of course, every day we hear from socialists in Germany, they should pay more taxes, and we should stop with this, what they call tax loopholes and so what they are not. We have all their demands, but yes, now this way we have this kind of what we call family companies. And I don't know if you know this book. A friend of mine wrote a book. It's Hidden Champions. It's about the success of Germany. Hidden Champions. It's companies, no one knows the name of these companies because these are no listed companies, but they have a strong market position. Sometimes they are number one in the world or number two, but you never heard about these companies because they are not listed on the stock exchange. And he summed up when he wrote his book, half of all these hidden champions in the world are based in Germany. This was the secret of it's Professor Herbert Simon. I think it's also in Korean, it's everywhere in the world. It's Hidden Champions is the title of the book. And he's a good friend of mine, and he reads all of my books, and I'm friends with him. But it's a part of explaining. But they, of course, the socialists, every day you can hear someone in Germany, oh, the rich should pay more, we should have higher taxes. In Germany, it's one of the countries with the highest taxes in the world. I was an entrepreneur, 15 years. I paid from my profit, from my profit, almost 50% year by year, 50%. I earned 2 million, 1 million to the government, 1 million for me. And in spite of this fact, do you know what they say? Finally, these are all people tax avoiders, and they should do finally something to pay their taxes. But the reality is, in Germany, 1% of the people with highest income pay 24% of income tax. 1% pay 24%, and half of the population pays only 5% of income tax. And if you speak about inheritance tax, we should learn something from Sweden. Some people think Sweden is a socialist country, and it's true they have very high income taxes, but they had much higher before. But they have no wealth tax, they abolished inheritance tax, they abolished gift tax. So if Bernie Sanders tells people who know nothing, of course, about Sweden in the United States, we should have this kind of Swedish socialism. Okay, first time abolish inheritance tax, abolish wealth tax, abolish gift tax, then we have a little bit more Sweden in the United States. Okay, but that's another topic. So thank you for giving me the opportunity. Thank you especially for your support. This was one of the most important things happened to me here, to be in Korea. I'll be tomorrow the last time here, then Saturday I go to Mongolia, first time. Even I go to small countries, they have only 3 million people there, and some people ask me, hey, why do you go to this small countries like Bosnia, or I was in Serbia, and I would go to Montenegro, I would go to Mongolia. Why do you go there? Because the others, they don't go there. So this is an opportunity. They neglect them. Oh, it's enough. Publish your book, friend of me told me. Publish in English and Spanish, it's enough. Don't have all this small. No, if I go there and it's like a family for me. They are as important as a big country for me. Then I think I have an advantage. So this is why, I was owner of a PR marketing company, because I think always in this, me now not so long, since yesterday, but maybe you saw, if you want to understand me as a person, I'm a relatively rare mixture between a scholar, scientist on the one hand, and marketing PR guy on the other hand. And this is, I think, something I can give for you.
I think rather than of course, marketing is also but traveling money to extend playing capitalism in Korea, Mongolia, and even Nigeria. And I think that his effort. That's a big hand. Yeah. Some small gift to you.
예, 저기, 설명해 줄 얘기 있고, 그리고 여기요, 오늘 정말 엄청난 가르침을 주신 훌륭한 선생님을 만난 감동으로 훌륭한 스승과 제자에 관한 사연이 제 고향 제주도에 추사 김정일 선생님이 적거지에 세안도, 이 세안도가 있거든요. 국보라고요. 국보 180호. 그래서 이거를 받아주십시오. 그래서 이걸 사진을 잘 찍어서
잘 찍겠습니다.
북컨서트 칸톡방에
올리겠습니다.
올려놓아 주시기를 바랍니다. 그리고 이 사진은 제가 가보로 물려줘야 되니까 잘 보시고 발제문은 또 제가 영어로 해서 메일로 해서 이제 보내드리겠습니다. 지텔만 선생님이 저보다